Okay, before we dive in, I have to address something really quickly. If you're watching this on YouTube, you may notice that my nose looks a little red. And let's just say that I had some precancerous spots that were frozen off this week. And so I'm rocking a little bit of redness. And I know it's not very glamorous. And of course, you might not really notice it all. But of course, I notice it. And I'm a little self-conscious. So I just wanted to get that out of the way right up front, in case you're sitting there watching me and you're wondering, I wonder what happened to her nose. Moving on, because today's episode, and I'm super excited about this one, is the fact that I almost quit my creative business, and I want to tell you why. Have you ever stood in a fabric store? Maybe it's a quilt shop, and you're walking down the aisles, and you're touching the bolts of fabric, and you're looking for something fairly specific. You know what I mean? There's a specific print, or there's a specific color, or there's a specific scale of the motifs that you're looking for. And you know exactly what it is, and you know the one that would be perfect for whatever project you have in mind. It's just that you can't find it. It's not there. It doesn't seem to exist. You've looked through every bolt and nothing is quite right, and you leave a little frustrated thinking, why can't I ever find exactly what I need? You also might be asking yourself, I would love to see my own designs on fabric. And if that's ever been you, then today's episode is perfect. Because what I want to share with you today is a story about how I almost quit my creative business and the one thing that turned everything around. And along the way, I think you might discover that the skill I'm talking about is the exact answer to that fabric aisle frustration you have been carrying around for years. Welcome to the Creative Business Spark podcast. I'm LaFollette, creative entrepreneur, online educator, and business coach. After getting laid off in my late 50s, I found myself adrift with no income and no sense of self. But my mom always said, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. So I decided to reinvent myself and build an online creative business from scratch. Now I help women like you do the same. This podcast is where art, mindset, and entrepreneurship meet. I'll share behind-the-scenes lessons, inspiring stories, mindset shifts, and more. Let this be the spark you need to build or grow a creative business with joy and purpose. Let's dive in because it's never too late to create. Let's talk about the trap of doing too much. There's this particular kind of exhaustion that I think a lot of creative entrepreneurs understand on a very deep level. It's not the tired that you feel after a long, wonderful day at your craft table. It's a different kind of tired. It's the tired that comes from doing everything, posting on Instagram, writing emails, updating your online shop, maintaining your website, trying to show up on every platform, preparing for your next launch, and still feeling like you're completely standing still. I know that feeling. There was a season in my business earlier this year, actually, where I sat down at my table one morning and my first thought was, I should be posting more on Instagram. Not because I had something meaningful to share, not because it was bringing in income, but because the algorithm was demanding it. And I felt like I needed to respond to that demand. And somewhere along the way, I realized that I had confused being busy with actually building a business strategically. I was on what I now call the social media treadmill, running fast and going absolutely nowhere. And here's the thing I had to eventually reckon with. More content does not mean more income. I spent months optimizing my various social media platforms, testing posting times, trying different caption styles, experimenting with reels versus carousels. And you know what happened? My account did grow a little bit, but my income didn't really budge because I wasn't building my business. I was actually supporting the Instagram platform and the algorithm. So here's the really important message. Quality over quantity is a rule that we should absolutely apply to our business, where one beautifully executed piece beats 10 ones that you rushed through. And that same rule applies to how we run the day-to-day of our business. And when I finally understood that, I started asking a very different question. Instead of what else should I be doing, I started asking what's actually working and why don't I do more of that and stop doing the things that aren't working and that really are just busy work. Now let's talk a little bit about what I like to call the products myth. That same more is more thinking had crept into my approach to products as well. There's this pressure in the creative world to have a massive catalog, hundreds of listings, new collections every season, more designs, more colorways, more. And I did believe it for a while. I felt like I always had to be creating something new. And then I decided to kind of pivot a bit and start selling at craft fairs. I wanted to get some real input from my customers, and I could only do that if I actually started selling in person. And what I discovered there quietly changed everything. When I showed up at those craft fairs, I did not bring everything I had. I brought my strongest categories, which are mugs, greeting cards, tote bags, carry-all cases, and wrapping paper. So it's a beautifully focused, curated set of items. And so it made it easier for me to merchandise my table. People could see what I had to offer much better, and it performed a lot better. My wrapping paper would sell out, greeting cards disappeared within the first couple of hours, and people would come back and bring their friends because they could hold things in their hands and their eyes would light up. The same art, the same patterns I've been making, but placed in front of real human beings who could touch them instead of just seeing something on a computer screen. It makes a very big difference. And fewer, better products also sold intentionally and presented beautifully. That's what actually moves the needle. And here's the part that surprised me the most. All of those products, the mugs, the cards, the tote bags, the wrapping paper, they all came from the same skill, surface pattern design, which is essentially anything that you design that you can put on a surface. And I just described a bunch of surfaces: wrapping paper, fabric, tote bags, mugs, you name it. So let's talk a little bit about the dream that you haven't let yourself say out loud. Often people come to me and they say, I've always dreamed of putting my designs on fabric. So let's come back to that fabric store for just a minute, because I think this is really where it gets exciting. If you're someone who sews, maybe you quilt, or you work with fabric in any way, you have probably felt that frustration more times than you can count. You have a vision, you have a specific color story in mind, you have potentially motifs that you're looking for, and you've got a feeling that you're trying to create. And the fabric that would bring it to life simply doesn't exist anywhere you've looked. And what most people don't realize, and this genuinely blew my mind when I first discovered it, is that the technology to design and print your own fabric has become incredibly accessible. There are so many print-on-demand sites. Spoonflower is one of the most well-known for fabric and wallpaper. But there are many, many others where you can upload your pattern designs and have them printed on real products, on wallpaper, on gift wrap. You can order yardage so you can use a variety of your own designs in quilt projects or sewing projects. And it's not necessarily that you're just going to focus on uploading to those actual platforms. You can order products in real life and see samples, and then you can resell those at a craft fair or an art show. And they're your designs, they're your colorways, they represent your vision, and you can hold them in your hands in real life. If you wanted to, you could sell your patterns to other makers, to other quilters who are standing in that same fabric aisle, dreaming the same dream that you are. Now, here's where it gets even better. If you're already a creative person, and I'm guessing that you are because you're listening to this podcast, you may already be much closer to this than you think. Let me give you an example. If you design greeting cards, even simple ones, or you just doodle, that artwork you've already created can become the foundation of a repeating pattern. Maybe it's florals, or maybe it's hand-lettered words, or it's some illustrated botanicals, or it's a bunch of foxes. All of it can be transformed and tiled into what's called a repeating pattern that then can live on fabric, wrapping paper, a tote bag, mugs, etc. And you create one cohesive body of work, and you can put it on multiple products, which means that you can then also have multiple income streams. And this is what surface pattern design makes possible. And it starts with learning one foundational skill: how to create a repeating pattern that repeats from side to side and from top to bottom. So here's what actually changed everything for me. What I ultimately did when I stopped nearly quitting and started actually building something sustainable, I got ruthlessly honest with myself about what was actually working. And one of my mentors, Stu McLaren, says, do more of what's working and less of what's not, which seems kind of obvious, but a lot of the time we forget that because we're so busy trying to keep up with everything else we're supposed to be doing. I started to focus on what was actually genuinely producing results in my business. In terms of money, yes, but also in terms of my time and my energy, because those are finite. So when I looked honestly at the answer, one thing kept rising to the top. Not my Instagram strategy, not my email subject line formulas, not how many products I had listed online. The foundation of everything, those craft fair sales and the product line that I developed, all of it was the quality of my pattern design work. And when I invested in deepening that skill, everything got better because mastery comes from iteration. And the mindset shift from I should do more to I should do this one thing really well is what saved my business and my sanity. And when surface pattern design becomes your foundation, every other business decision gets clearer. You know what to say yes to. You know what to say no to. You're not chasing every new platform or trend because you're building something that genuinely compounds over time. A portfolio of patterns that can live on dozens of product types, that can be licensed, that can be printed on the exact fabric you've always wished existed. So here's what I want to leave you with today. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the right thing really well. And if you're a creative person, whether you quilt or you sew or you make greeting cards or you paint watercolors or maybe you doodle in the margin of your notebooks, there's a very good chance that surface pattern design is the missing piece that connects everything you already love to the income that you would like to have. Imagine designing the fabric you've always wished you could find. Imagine uploading your artwork and ordering a sample and holding something in your hands that is entirely, unmistakably yours. Imagine selling that same pattern to other makers who are dreaming the same dream. This is a learnable skill. I learned it in my 60s, and so if I could do it, you absolutely can do it. And I'd like to invite you to my From Doodles to Dollars coaching week. The Doodles coaching week is coming up shortly. Depending on when you're listening to this, you'll be able to join it, or you might have to wait until the next time I offer it. But it's 5 days of focused, beginner-friendly lessons where we start at the very beginning. I will walk you through creating your very first repeating pattern step by step by step using Adobe Illustrator. And people who come into the coaching week have never opened Adobe Illustrator before. And since I learned not so long ago, I remember exactly what that felt like. And I will take you through it one baby step at a time. You can find all the details and sign up at members.artwithann.com/doodles. I'll say that again, but you can also see it on screen. members.artwithann.com/doodles. And I'll also make sure that it's in the show notes for you. No prior experience needed. Just you, your creative ideas, and a process that has worked for hundreds of women who started exactly where you are right now. We'll talk about how your existing artwork, yes, it could be your greeting card work or your doodles, can become the foundation of a repeating pattern. We'll talk about where that pattern can live, and we'll talk about building something real without requiring you to be on every platform or hustle yourself into exhaustion. Just one foundational skill done really, really well. Right now, the early bird price for From Doodles to Dollars Coaching Week is just $10. $10. That's it. So go to members.artwithann.com/doodles or grab the link in the show notes and claim your space before the early bird price goes away. Let's finally design the fabric you've always wished existed. Let's take it out of your head and put it down on paper and bring it out into the world together. Because it's never too late to create. And sometimes the thing that changes everything isn't adding more, it's finally learning that one skill that makes everything else possible. I hope to see you in the From Doodles to Dollars coaching week. Thanks so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, yes, my nose really does look like that, but I'm totally fine. It'll go away soon enough. And please take care of yourself. I always like to close by saying that I am Ann LaFollette. And remember, it's never too late to create. That's it for today, and I'll see you again next week.